Thanks again to Jamie for letting us use that Mick McCarthy house music mix. We are the Premium FPL podcast at premium_FPL on Twitter. For those all not already follow us, please do. For injury updates, talking points, and Callum copying Mindy's team. Notice he's fit that in there. So I'm Callum, one half of the podcast, and I'm joined as always by Mindy. How's it going, Led?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm looking forward to this double game week planning one, actually. Because usually every week I bring all the sort of the stats and the insight and come up with a good strategy. And then at the end of the podcast, you just go, yeah, I'm copying that actually. So I'm going to do that this week, I think.
Bollocks. I thought after the calamity you made of the doubles last week, you might have done a bit of research.
Well, we'll come on to it, but some hasty transfers I made at the weekend on Saturday, they've made planning effectively for what's coming really difficult. I've made it harder than it was already for me last week. So,
it wasn't a few drunken Saturday morning transfers, was it?
Well, no, I wasn't drunk, but I was just like in a rush to get to this wedding on time, and I had like 15 minutes sat in an Uber to make moves, and I had 2 free transfers, and like I didn't want to just like burn one. I ended up making 2, when really I should have just made 1 and like saved 2. So I had free transfers.
It's not like you normally spend a couple of hours in a dark room Friday night, don't you?
Yeah. I'm usually in some form of dark room on a Friday night, but yeah, with COVID, it is actually just my bedroom. Shall we? There's going to be a lot to get through. Shall we like crack into the housekeeping and just get on with it? Save our boring bants and chit chat for when there's less going on.
Right.
So yeah, if you've not heard, there's a big double game week that's been announced, and before that, there's in Game Week 18, there's a blank game week. Well, there's a game week where lots of teams don't have a fixture, so there's only a few teams playing. So usually this tends to happen towards the end of the season, but it's come earlier this season, and the usual ways that we manage that sort of thing with the free hit chip and the wild cards and bench boosts and whatever, it's all a bit up in the air because it's come earlier in the season and it's harder to plan around. So we're going to spend a lot of time talking about that, I think. We'll talk about how we did last week, points and all that at the start. And then I think most of the pod will be looking at that strategy for the blank and the double. And then there's been some injuries to Chelsea defenders, so we'll look at that. And then the usual segments.
Thanks for reminding me.
And then the usual segments of the premium players and what we're doing with our moves for next week. I think that's mainly it this week, unless I've forgotten something.
No, you've summed that up beautifully. Do you want to touch on you can start on your team or?
I'll just quickly timestamp us. So we're recording Wednesday night after the United Everton EFL Cup game. There wasn't any injuries in that, was there?
No, not as well.
The
Reds go match,
And what else? Yeah, we're on YouTube again. Follow us, subscribe to us on YouTube. Leave us a like or whatever you do on YouTube. It's likes on YouTube, isn't it?
Subscribe and like. Yeah.
Like and subscribe on YouTube, and then if you're still feeling generous, it's Christmas. Give us a review on Apple Podcasts. So last week I got 80 points, which hang on, you got more points than me last week, didn't you? So traditionally you should go first. I'll let you go first.
Is that how we've done it? I didn't even know that was the thing till now.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, that's what we've been doing. Yeah, I mean we've got to stick to tradition. Now we've set one.
Right, I didn't even know that's tradition. But so I got 86, but I took a 4-point hit, so that was 82. My transfers last week actually were planned for a long time. Brought Kane and Son back for in the end, it was KDB. Seems like a long time ago that now. KDB and Watkins. So Watkins was always the plan. But then I think you taught me out of taking KDB out last week, and then you didn't even end up doing it yourself. So I've actually attempted to copy you, and it's not paid out this time. No, I was just from what you were saying last week around the captaincy and also the double game week looming in 19 that City don't play. That's what swayed me move to Kane and Son. It didn't pay off at the weekend, but they looked to get good again this evening against Stoke. I know it's only Stoke, but obviously they've got Fulham, Sheffield United, and Leeds all coming soon in the next 5. So fingers crossed it'll pay off.
Yeah, so it's interesting that's sort of swayed your decision. I kind of wish I did take out KDB. So yeah, I got 80 points. Just used 2 free transfers, no hit. But I took out Chilwell for Kufal, the West Ham defender, and that was with the double game week in mind that's come in because West Ham have 2 good fixtures in the double, and then that downgrade meant I could do Grealish to Son, and I kind of just got greedy, like wanting to have as many premiums. So that meant that I've now got Kane, Son, Fernandes, Salah, and De Bruyne, which sounds good on paper, but now it's left me with not great options for the blank game week and not much funds in the bank for like what I need to do to get ready. So I kind of wish, looking back, that I used 1 free transfer and just did De Bruyne to Son. But then on the flip side, I'd have Chilwell in my team who I'd need to make a transfer for. So slightly.
All right, thanks for rubbing it in, lad.
But yeah, I'll talk about why those transfers have kind of cock-blocked myself a little bit soon. But yeah, 80 points. My rank now is just under 600k. Where are you now?
So I'm 68,000, which ticking along kind of nice. I think if you're getting 100k around this time of year, you're doing very well. With the turn of the year, kind of pick up pace. Do you think you can make that 100k over Christmas? It sounds like a big jump, but there's not actually that many points, is it? In it, is there?
Yeah, it's all very compressed, and I think this time of the year because it's confusing now with what's happening, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for making ground if you've got a plan and if you're organised and you remember to make your transfers and that sort of thing. I just want to mention. So Josh, who's in our league, he didn't have Salah going into the week just gone, and when he saw that Salah came off after gloating to people that Salah was on the bench, he then had to rage transfer Salah in when he saw that he got 2 goals and an assist off the bench, and he ended up doing a drunken -4 on Saturday night before the weekend even finished, and now
who's he got out?
Sorry?
Who he took out?
He took out De Bruyne. Right. And he's now got to sort out Chilwell as well. So
nice. Our thoughts and prayers are with him.
Yeah, that's a timely warning. Don't drink an FPL because Christmas and whatnot. A few eggnogs, the -4s might start coming. So yeah, don't be like Josh. Important sort of public safety announcement there.
I'm sure they'll appreciate that.
Yeah, you've kind of understood what's going on with this blank and double and whatnot. If anyone listened to what I said last week, just erase that from your mind because I messed up a couple of points on what was going on, and I'm sure nobody listens to.
I'm sure. I'd love to play a replay of the podcast last week right now, just to insert it there. You almost confused me because I thought you knew what was going on, and then you started telling me something that wasn't going on, and then I was questioning myself, and then it all got a bit messy.
Yeah, I mean, it is so confusing though, isn't it? There's so many permutations, and like the people on Twitter who know what they're doing have got like these bloody charts and matrices and stuff, and like, it's like trying to be an accountant, just trying to figure out just how to have a team for the next few weeks. So yeah, that's where probably being organised comes into it, and having a bit of willpower to actually plan it out. So yeah, I'm gonna have to sit down and figure it out at some point this week. But yeah, so seeing as you've got a plan, do you want to?
Discuss it.
Do you want to just go over like what when the blank is and why that means there's a double and all that sort of stuff first?
Yeah, just gonna get the notes up from what I've jotted down. But yeah, so if people have not seen already, I think it's due to the FA Cup rearrangements of TV and stuff like that. So in 18 now, there is only 5 matches. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, 5 matches. And then those matches that aren't played in that week have been moved on to 19. So the teams who don't play once in 18 play twice in 19. In paper, it's quite simple, but then there is other factors. We don't want to confuse the listeners too much, but there's rumours around United winning tonight and they're running out of midweek fixtures because of the Europa League.
You don't confuse me either, not just the listeners. I've got no idea what's going on.
But I think it's because, with the obviously Carabao Cup reaching the semis and also the Europa League, United are actually running out of Wednesdays and midweeks quite quickly to play the game. So they're almost trying to rumours that they might have to shoehorn a game in. It definitely won't come this weekend, but they're saying between 16 and 18. I think the latest you've seen is that it's most likely 18, which what you said.
Well,
which means
that's one of Ben Krellin's options. Like, so
right.
I guess, yeah, could just mention to people, like, someone who does know what's going on is at Ben Krellin on Twitter. So
yeah,
if you've got a Twitter account, follow him, and he's got charts. And if you're a chart and spreadsheet person, you might be able to make a quick plan off what he sort of updates. But yeah, he's very on it with like fixture updates and how it all works in terms of how the Premier League will be thinking and all that. So yeah, shout out to Ben. Follow him. I'll let you crack on.
Yeah, no, it's so yeah, shout out to Ben. But in terms of my team, so at the moment I have 5 players in that single game week, but
the blank,
2 of them
18.
Yeah, the single, blank
Right.
single. Do you call it blank? Yeah, I've heard it be called single game week and blank game week, but yeah, we'll go with blank. We'll go with you. So I have 5 players at the moment, but 2 of them are from Aston Villa, who have quite a tough run after this weekend. So I might be looking to get Martinez and Grealish out anyway, which would leave me with Diaz and the 2 Spurs boys, Kane and Son. I actually think I've listened to a few podcasts this week and they're saying 18 might not be that great because the fixtures aren't that great. But then if City are playing Brighton, there is opportunity there to make quite a big ground. If City get a 4-5-0 and you've got 3 attackers or 2 attackers and defender, there's an opportunity to make quite a big ground there. And Kane and Son, obviously, can even get Calvert-Lewin, who I've already got, actually.
Yeah, so this is kind of where it gets team dependent. So when you were explaining like why other podcasts are saying it's not a great game week to use the free hit, I think they're working off the assumption that teams have already got a couple of City players and a Spurs player and Dominic Calvert-Lewin and who's the other main player, Grealish. So so some teams, if you've already got 8 players in the blank in the in game week 18 when there's blanks, and you've got the sort of the template big players, for you it might not be a great game week to use the free hit, if that makes sense. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's this is where it's like there isn't a one size fits all strategy. You kind of have to look at what players you've got in your team currently that will be in 18 and how many are you happy to get out, and then what do you want to do for having as many players that have doubles the week after. So yeah, that's where it gets confusing. And the other thing is that just there'll be a time in the second half of the season, in the new year, when there's going to be another week where there's going to be blanks. So you kind of have to think, do you want to save the free hit for then, rather than wasting it now, if you can sort of hobble through this one, which is the sort of decision. And you can't, that's the decision I'm having to make now, because that deciding if I'm using the free hit or not in 18 affects what transfers I want to make. Because if I'm using the free hit in 18, I don't have to worry about getting players that play then. Because you can just pick whatever players you want. Whereas if I'm wanting to save the free hit for the second half of the season, that completely changes that. So just a bit of context on why it's not easy to recommend a sort of solution that applies to everyone.
The strongest argument for me in terms of free hit being the chip that I do play now, either 18 or 19, is because I've only got one wild card left, that second wild card. I'd almost want to play that before the week before a next double game week that would fully maximize the bench boost. So I think the free hit probably makes more sense for me now if I am to play a chip than any of the others. Something else that stands out for me, just because of the people who are wild carding and bench boosting in 19, is to try and keep ground with them, is to triple captain Salah. Obviously, he got his rest at the weekend, so he's likely to play a few in a row now. And when the Europe comes back, an FA Cup, although I know Klopp hates cup competitions, he tries and gets out at the quickest opportunity. Salah might begin to be rested, but I just can't see him being rested against United and Burnley, both at home, both good fixtures on paper. I think that United defence isn't as strong as other defences, I wouldn't say. There's that added factor too. I think it's quite an exciting period because we've not had this before in FPL, not in my memory anyway, such like a big double quite early on, game week 18.
19.
19, sorry.
Yeah. God,
you're on it this week.
I think the fact that it's come earlier in the season as well means that usually you would like to play the bench boost in a big double, but it's not as appealing this time to use the bench boost and have 15 players that play twice, which is obviously a massive opportunity to gain ground, because your team value is higher later in the season, isn't it? After you've accrued all the price rises from having popular players, so you can't really afford to fill your bench with players that are going to play twice in a double at this point in the season. Does that make sense? So
yeah,
and even if you can, you then have to go through the next few weeks of the season with not loads of, but like reasonably priced players like on the bench, which you might not want going forwards. You kind of like when it's like double game week 37, which it usually is towards the end of the season, you can fill your bench with players that will play. You've only got like a week left after that to worry about. So having a slightly differently shaped squad where you've got money on the bench and less in your first 11 is not as big of an issue. Whereas this time, you don't want to be moving your funds around from your premiums onto your bench and then having to try to take hits after the double to move it all back, because then the points you gained will just be taken out. Like the points you gain from the doubles, you'll just be taking them out again. So yeah, I think that's why. I think that's probably why people are looking at the triple captainship rather than the bench boost, aren't they? As well.
Yeah, no, that was very nicely. But I got confused at the start. But
Did you?
You were clear by the end.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, there was a lot going on, but yeah.
Well, it is. I think so. Yeah. Just to clarify, just in case people don't get it. So what's your team value at the moment? Because yours is high, isn't it?
105.2.
Yeah. So mine's like 104. So yeah, I can't. If I was going to maximize the bench boost in the double, I'd ideally need an extra 1.5-2 million so that I could afford to have like an extra playing
Yeah.
goalkeeper, and then the 3 spots on my bench, I wouldn't want Brewster because he's not going to probably play. I wouldn't want players like that because they're not ideal players to use the bench boost for. You're pretty much wasting the chip. So
are you with me in the sense that the bench boost you'll probably play your wild card the week before the big games?
Yeah,
the big doubles. Yeah.
I think the only part where I might not be with you is free hitting 18.
Yeah.
I might just like sort of cut my losses on 18 and see.
Would you play triple captain 19 Salah?
Yeah, I think so. And if I do take that approach with the blank in 18, I just start thinking about getting players in that are gonna making sure the rest of my 11 are players that play twice in the double. We should probably mention at this point that we've talked about this from both our perspectives, but there might be teams or people listening who still have their first wild card. So for them, it's completely different, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they've got a massive advantage. Well, whether they can play it correctly, it's more of a mind fuck for them, but I think they've got a more advantage for sure. It's just there's a lot more options for them.
So yeah, like if you've forgot your first wild card, like you have to play it by it's next week, isn't it? Game week 16.
Yeah, so it might be before 17. One of them.
So what you'll want to do is use that wild card to set yourself up with the main options for game week 19 when the teams are playing twice. Fill your players with those. Fill your team with those players on that wild card before it goes. And
then free hit 18.
Yeah, and then if they want to or if they don't want to save it. The thing to remember is that with this double coming earlier in the season as well, compared to normal, usually people tend to go all in on a double and fill their team with them and whatever. But this time, there is half the season left to go with those players then in your team. So it's important to look at not just which teams are playing twice in the double and what fixtures they have, but do those players have a good run afterwards? That's an extra thing to think about, which we don't usually have to do when we plan for a double. So yeah, there's lots of permutations and lots of things to think about. So do you just want to quickly I know you just kind of did it, but just run through your plan and then maybe what your transfer plan would be with that.
Talking to you more, think about it. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6. I've got 6 players at the moment in 18. So whether I can play 2 transfers before then have 8 players. How many would you have out of interest for 18?
Just a second. I did prepare that. I'll have 2, 3. I'm going to say 5.5 because 2 of them are Kilman and Brewster, who are sort of in and out of the team. So 5.5.
Right, interesting. It's because I could probably get 8 in because I need to take Chilwell and James out, which we'll move on to in a bit. But I could probably bring a Spurs defender in and then another City defender, possibly. So like Stones and Reguilon. That's another option I could do. But then I wouldn't have the same options around game week 19 with the double game weeks. But then City have Palace at home and they might get more than a double. Yeah, so it's quite interesting. The more I think about it, the more I am set on the Salah triple captain 19. Just because I think, like I said, I think he's going to get 19 both. Or if he doesn't touch 19 Burnley, I think he'd be close, like 60, 70. And I just don't think at the end of the day, Salah's the best option in the game, and you're not necessarily going to get the same double 2 home games when it comes around and they get another double. Liverpool might not even get another double if they go out early, the FA Cup and stuff.
So yeah, the other thing that makes it appealing is it's 2 home games. And whether you read into those stats or not, he does tend to do slightly better at home, and it's a good rest. There's a good period of rest between the games. Like it's the 17th of January they play United, and then the 21st they play Burnley. So that's enough rest where you wouldn't be worried that he'd have to have his minutes managed, you'd think. So
yeah, and they don't play from the 4th either, do they? So they don't play from the 4th till the 17th because they don't have a game. Oh no, they got FA Cup, sorry,
yeah.
which he might not play.
Yeah,
he might not play.
Well, if you look at the team, if you look at the team that Klopp was putting out in the FA Cup last year, it wasn't.
So he's so he's effectively getting a 2-week rest. He might come on for the last 20 or something, but yeah, I can't see him playing. So I think that's a great option personally.
So yeah, just to talk about maybe my team for a second. So the reason I was saying I've sort of caught myself a little bit is taking out Calvert-Lewin a couple of weeks ago doesn't look great now because he's still kept on getting assists. He's not like hauled like we didn't think he would, but he's still just consistently getting points, and he's got a fixture in that game week 18 where there's blanks, so he would have been a good one to have still. And then I took out Grealish last week so that I could get Son, and Grealish is playing in that. Well, for one, Grealish scored more than Son the week just gone, which by quite a bit. And yeah, Grealish is cheaper and would have meant that if I hadn't done that and just stuck with Kane as my Tottenham coverage, I would have been able to afford like a premium City defender or a premium Liverpool defender. Because I think a lot of people are either looking at getting Cancelo or Diaz or Stones, or maybe Stones. We'll talk about Stones actually after this. But yeah, not having at the moment, I now can't afford. I can't get in a Liverpool defender for their double, which we've just been saying why it's a good double to attack for Salah, and the same probably applies for getting Robertson or Alexander-Arnold. So I don't have an easy way to do that now that I've spent all my money on getting Son and Kane, and I can't afford Cancelo or Diaz either, which means I'm having to consider John Stones. So talk to me about Stones a little bit. Do you think
Bone Stones?
He was rested last night, wasn't he?
So first off, he's probably behind Edison, De Bruyne, and Diaz. He's probably the next nailed person, I'd probably say. Maybe Walker as well, but in terms of that defense, I think he's nailed now. He might get the odd rest here and there, but he's been playing brilliant. The game against Southampton, I think he got man of the match, or he's very close to. He had another superb game. And like you say there, he's rested completely in the Carling Cup. So I think he's close as nailed as you can get, really. But the game's coming in such quick succession, there is chance that he might miss one. But if he's getting 4 and 5 for a City defender at the moment, how they're playing at 4.9, if he's playing 4 and 5, I think you're getting value for money.
Yeah. It's just the only annoying thing is just that slight risk that like he just drops out of the team as quickly as he came in.
Well, he's definitely playing this weekend. I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't.
And then what else was I going to say? There's a couple of other things to mention. Just that I've seen people getting confused about with the free hit chip. Like if you are using it in 18, you can't say if you have 2 free transfers going into that week and then you free hit, you only have 1 after it. So don't fall into that mistake. You'll end up costing yourself a transfer. And what was the other thing? If you're taking out players that before that blank, the game week 18 where there's blank game weeks, where there's blank games, and then you want to get those players back. Say for example, maybe what's an example of that? Liverpool players, for example. Say you get rid of them for the blank, but then maybe your plan is to buy them back for the double. Don't forget that if those players have gone up in value, you might not then be able to afford to get them back, if that makes sense. So you have to factor in like your selling price and what their current price is. So if you are making moves like that, be careful. Because I think that caught me out one season where I took out players before a blank, and then I wanted to get them back in for when they were doubling, and then I couldn't afford the team that I had originally because I forgot to factor in how much the players had gone up in price, etc. So something to think about. And then one last thing, if there wasn't enough to think about, there's a few players who coming into this period are on 3 or 4 yellow cards, and if they say, for example, Kyle Walker-Peters, who I'm looking at in my team, he's got 3. So if he picked up one this week, he might not end up having 2 games in the Southampton's double game week anyway, because he'd be suspended for one of them or something. So that's another thing to monitor. I don't know if I can't think of any others off the top of my head, but I think there'll be a few.
Grealish is on free, I think.
Grealish, right?
But you've sold Grealish just out of interest.
Yeah, so I did that to get Son.
Do you think that's the right move now with his fixtures coming up? Are you still happy with it?
So yeah, the kind of thing that I was thinking at the time was, I thought Big Sam might just come in and have a new manager bounce with West Brom, but yeah, he didn't. And then Grealish's fixtures going forwards are harder than City's. So it was either Grealish or De Bruyne are out. So I kind of thought I'd rather, if I have to keep one of them in for the next few, I'd rather hold. Well, it goes against what I was saying last week, where I was like, if I'm not captaining De Bruyne, it's hard to justify his price. I still do think that a little bit. But yeah, I think Grealish's fixtures just took over in my head, thinking that like his fixture in the blank against Spurs, I can just see that being a really tight game. Like, did I hear you say you might even get rid of him before the blank anyway?
Yeah, if I am to free hit, then yes, I will be. But whether I U-turn now, because that's my name of my game, isn't it? I'm just looking. If I get Dyer and Stones in this week, then I probably wouldn't have to. So basically, for those not knowing my team, James and Chilwell are injured, so it's whether. And I've got both of them, unfortunately. It's whether if I bring 2 double game weekers in, then I'll play the free hit. But then if I bring 2 single game weekers in, I probably won't free hit. But then it obviously won't have the doubles in 19.
If you didn't bring in Dyer and Stones for the blank single, whatever we're calling it, in 18,
I've got the plan here.
Who would the doublers be that you'd look to bring in for the week after?
So my other plan was to just do one transfer this week, James to Kufal, and then next week it would be Branthwaite to either Robbo or Trent, and then Grealish down to a 4.5, which on paper you're kind of losing Grealish there, but Curtis Jones would probably be the one. I know you touched on him last week, just because Liverpool with a double, you'd fancy him to play in at least one of them games. So he's probably the most attractive option at that price point. I'd probably say for that double. So that's the 2. I'd either do Thingy this week, James and Chilwell to Dyer and Stones, or I'd do James to Kufal and then bring it. And then that would leave me with the opportunity of, I know you mentioned beware of the price, like losing out, but I think I'd have enough to do Fernandes to KDB and then bring Fernandes in straight back.
Right. So you mentioned Kufal there, and I brought him in last week. He is a good one to bring in for the defence, I think, because
definitely for that double,
yeah. West Ham's fixtures in the double are Burnley at home and West Brom at home. So you'd think there's at least one clean sheet on the table there, and his like crossing numbers and chance creation numbers are pretty good for a player of his price. So hopefully he picks up an assist or 2 in the next few weeks as well. He's picked up a few already this season. So yeah, for his price, he looks like one of the best options in the game actually for 4.6. And then you mentioned United briefly there. I've seen some people talking about after 18, when Spurs have played in that blank, where other teams are blanking, because Spurs don't have a double. some people are on about maybe looking at Kane or Son after that to like Martial or Rashford to double on United for that double. So there's things you can do depending on like which players you like. You can attack this in various ways. It'll be interesting just to see what people do, won't it? There's going to be so many different.
Yeah, there's going to be so many different ways to play it. I think now, especially with United wins tonight and that added extra of the possibility of them playing in 18, it might sway my thinking to just not playing that free hit in 18, because if United have another game, then that's an extra Bruno in your side. So yeah, maybe the free hit isn't the most attractive option. Funny, when we started the podcast, that I was intent on doing it, whereas you always sway me to copy it.
Well, I'm not. I might end up free hitting an 18 yet. I still don't really know.
No, I definitely seen the merit in if you can get City players in and Kane and Son, and then you've obviously got Calvert-Lewin. Well, you've not, have you? But
I've not got Calvert-Lewin or Grealish now. So you got both of them still, haven't you?
Yeah, and if it was to bring Dyer and Stones in this week, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'd have 8 players already, and that's with another 2 weeks to come before that. So yeah,
I swear you got rid of Calvert-Lewin, or did you get him back or something, or did you just not?
No, I was going to do him out for Kane, but I did Watkins out in the end.
Right. Yes, I mean, by the sounds of it, like free hit, you don't even need to use it. If you, like, I wouldn't.
If I do them 2 defensive transfers to an 18, which would be Spurs and City, I probably won't. But then you're running the risk of John Bones Stones going down with a hamstring injury.
John Bones Stones. So is there anything else? Like, we've kind of rattled on about that for like half an hour. Is there anything else we need to mention at this point for permutations or things to think about for planning for these doubles and blanks?
No, I think we've done it. I think the main one for me is don't do anything yet. Like, is that the right advice? I just think the United thing lingering in my head makes me think that I don't want to put all my eggs in basket in one.
Yeah,
18.
I think waiting for the announcement on what happens with United's missing games, and just hoping it comes tomorrow, basically, Christmas Eve, so that we can make a plan before Boxing Day.
So I might have done something in his press conference. He might have been asked on it,
right?
Because I'm sure clubs he would have given the heads up. Surely.
I think United are keen to play it as soon as possible, because I think he was asked about it in his press conference last week, and basically, if you win and you get those points on the board, it's better to have them early and get momentum and get a run going than having fixtures like. It's all well and good having games in hand, but it's better to have the points on the board and build momentum, isn't it? So I think that's why Ollie's will be pushing to get that game moved forward if possible. Should we just quickly touch on? We wanted to touch on what people were doing with Chelsea defenders. So you've said you're considering.
I think for me, it depends on what you are doing for them for that 18, 19. I think you got to plan ahead.
Yeah.
I definitely see the value in either a Robbo or Trent. I still think Robbo's the strongest option, even though Trent's back and looking good. I think Robbo's too dangerous. But if you can't stretch to them, probably Dyer or Stones are probably two stand out just because of the clean sheet potential, really. Yeah.
I think if you are free hitting in that blank single 18, the best thing to do is to get, like for Chilwell, definitely is to get one of Robertson or Trent, because then you can just do whatever you want with the free hit in 18 when Liverpool aren't playing, and then you've got them in those Liverpool defenders in place for their double.
Yeah. So I do think Robbo in particular start to rack up the points now for sure.
What's the ownership difference like between them? Let me just quickly check. So I think Robertson's now 0.1 more expensive than
he went up last night.
So The thing with Robbo is that like he seems to get forward more and put in more like crosses, but he doesn't shoot that much. Whereas Alexander-Arnold does have the odd shot, and obviously he's on free kicks and that as well. So Trent's owned by 14% and Robertson's owned by 20%. So there's not that much in it. I was going to say, like, if there was a lot in it, I'd potentially go for the lower owned one because it's quite close, and then hope that Trent ends up outperforming Robertson, and you've got a bit of a differential. Because I think when it's a super close call like that between the two of them, it kind of does make sense to maybe go for the one where there's more upside in terms of the lower ownership. I think.
Yeah, just to touch on City players, actually, if Pep Roulette wasn't enough, I remember seeing this about this and I've forgotten. So they play 26th and the 28th, so maybe Stones won't play both. That's
right. Short, yeah.
So that's 48 hours. Yeah, I think that's the shortest of everyone, which sounds a bit barbaric. 48 hours, doesn't it? No wonder Pep wasn't too happy. So maybe he isn't the strongest option. Yeah, he'll definitely play at the weekend though.
Yeah, I think so. Should we talk about like what we're thinking of doing this week then? I know you've kind of, it depends a bit, but for me, I'm thinking. I used 2 transfers last week, and I want to wait to see what happens with this United game, and I want to just think about everything we've just talked about on this podcast, basically. There's so many things going on. I think I'm just going to save my transfer this week. So I can just see what else gets announced, see what injuries happen, and I think then if I have 2 free transfers going into the blank in 18, I can then use them a bit more effectively then. I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want to use the transfer now this week and then that player get injured on Boxing Day and then, rip up my plan and start again. So I think that's where I'm at. I'm just going to sit on my hands for this week and then see what happens. For you, you're going to wait to see what happens with this United game and then go from there.
Yeah, if nothing gets announced for the weekend, then I'll either do James to Kufal if I'm playing the free hit, or it will be Chilwell and James out for Stones and Diaz probably. And then I'd probably... How many weeks are we on? Yeah, I'll probably roll the transfer next week. I'll probably have one more transfer to play with, basically, because I'd look to do the flip-flop between Bruno and KDB. So I'd have one transfer left before the 18. Because I'd want to have 2 transfers in 19. So I've probably got one other transfer if I do that without taking a hit. So
yeah, I mean, I guess because we've just spent the whole time talking about the doubles and the blanks, which kind of takes over. Like there's probably no point doing the feels like sacrilege, but we'll leave the premium planning segment for this week.
Yeah.
I'll just say though that I think that with that being the name of our podcast and the fact that we have that weekly segment on it, I think maybe like with the way I've been building the team, I've just got slightly obsessed with having as many premiums with the best fixtures as possible.
Trying to live up to the billing.
And I've and that's probably why I've got rid of Calvert-Lewin and Grealish, which isn't great because for a lot of people they'll just be like season keepers, won't they? Like they're sort of performing well for their price, and even if Grealish does have these bad fixtures come in and Calvert-Lewin's just getting like 3 or 4 or 5 points a week with assists in harder fixtures, like at that price, it's fine. Which something I'm gonna maybe learn from for next year. Having a flexible team is important, especially when you've got all these dynamics with blanks and doubles and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, that's my sob story out of the way. I guess you're going to be copying me with my captain choice this week, Salah captain.
Oh, come off it. West Brom at home. I don't have KDB anymore. The only other option. That was the reason I sold him, because he wasn't captain material for the next few weeks. Well, 18's probably his next captaincy, isn't it? Because there's two Spurs boys after that. Fulham and then Leeds. Can't look beyond Kane and Son, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting actually. Yeah, Fulham and I think people who would you recommend though, given what I've just said, like people losing Grealish to get Son if they've already got Kane, or on the flip side, if they've got Son, would you recommend them like taking a -4 to get Kane for these two? Like, how important do you think it is?
From what I gather this season and what people like what I've read and stuff, Fulham and Leeds is almost better for Kane to be in as your captain, just because you'd expect Spurs to dominate them games more. Son's kind of the counter-attacking player where you kind of, if Spurs are going through a tough run, you take Kane out, but you leave Son in the hope that he gets one on the counter-attack. But I think these games against Fulham and Leeds where Spurs hopefully, I know Leeds dominate possession, but you'd expect Spurs to kind of overpower them. I think Kane's probably the man to have in for me for these next two.
Yeah.
Well, after this, I know they got Wolves next. Even Wolves is more of a Kane game, I think, than Son, just because of how deep they play.
Yeah. No, I probably agree with that. And then just to wrap up, I'd say given it is also confusing, if you do have a Twitter account, I'd probably recommend following that Ben Crellin guy we mentioned before, because he puts up what's going on with the fixtures, and some of the other big FPL accounts. There's a chap called Lego Mane he's put up like quite a good fixture matrix for seeing what fixtures are coming and the difficulty ratings and stuff, which can be useful. So yeah, if you want to gain that slight edge over Christmas, I'd recommend doing that, especially if you're confused with how best to manage it. And we'll try and I've been a bit sloppy the past couple of weeks with being at weddings and stuff, but we'll tweet out our plans as well before the deadlines of what we're doing.
I thought you've just been waiting for me so you can copy me.
But yeah, I think that's it this week, I think.
Yeah, obviously we touched. I just have one question. I know we've not done a special question this week because we've talked all about the doubles, but it's from Alex, who is playing his wild card this week. I know there'll be a few that will be playing the wild card over the next few weeks, and he kind of wants to capitalise on Southampton's great form, and he wants to know the midfield, who's the best to get out of Armstrong, JWP, and Walcott. He kind of wants a Southampton in there just because they're a nice price point, really.
So he's using his first wild card, is he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And
He just that'll be his only Saints player.
Right. Well, straight off the bat, I'd sort of say have Adams instead. But yeah, if it's a midfielder, I think now that Ings is injured, probably Walcott, because
did he say how long Ings is out for? I've not seen any update.
It looked like a hamstring injury, and given that the games are going to come so close together over this festive period, he's going to at least miss 2 or 3 games, isn't he?
Yeah, no, you're right. So,
yeah, based off how Walcott played up front with Adams last time Ings was injured, I'd probably say him. The safer pick would be Ward-Prowse, because he ticks over with assists and he's got the free kicks in his locker. What's the price on those two? Who's cheaper? Just a sec. Ward-Prowse is 6.3. Walcott is 5.8. Yeah, I'd probably go for Walcott. Save the money.
Walcott's quite cheap, isn't he? 5.8. I've not even looked at him before.
Yeah, and he's got a good relationship, like playing up front with Che Adams from how it looks, and their fixtures in the double are decent. So in game week 19, they've got Leicester away, but Leicester do concede goals even though they're decent, and then they've got Leeds who concede goals regularly. So So yeah, I mean, I've potentially been looking at ways that I can actually get Brewster to Adams maybe for the double, just because I do think Southampton are looking good, and I do like those games they've got in the double, but it's not an easy thing to do. So yeah, he's thinking along the right lines, I'd say for sure, by getting a Southampton player for the double. But yeah, I'd say if he can, like if it's a midfielder, yeah, Walcott. But if you can, I don't know what you think, but Adams
Yeah,
is
no,
probably head and shoulders above Walcott. If you can,
I'm in full support of that. I think Walcott would be a good shout, especially if Ings has got 4 weeks. 4 weeks
but
out is probably 8 games over this period.
one. So just in case it affects thinking, so I would have Che Adams as my Southampton player as the strike as in a striker slot, and then with the Southampton midfield slot, I'd get Rafinha from Leeds.
Yeah, I've discussed this, yeah.
Because Leeds have a pretty good double as well. And Rafinha just looked amazing at the moment. His underlying stats are decent. He's been ticking over with well, no, he's not been ticking over, but he got points against. He was the best player against United. He got 8 points against United, and he just seems to be. He just seems to have the most like improvement in form, and he just seems to be getting better and better every week. So he's 5.4 as well, which is cheaper than Walcott. So yeah, if having Rafinha means you can get Che Adams in up front instead, I'd maybe look at that. But yeah, it's hard to say without seeing his team. But yeah, is there anyone else that maybe would compete with Walcott for that slot?
What in terms of any midfielder?
One of the West Ham, like maybe Jared Bowen, because West Ham we talked about how good West Ham's double is, but yeah, he might already have that. He might already have a West Ham player in his plan.
I think he already has Souček, but yeah.
But yeah, he's slightly jealous of not still having our first wild card.
Same here. Although I think the heartaches around this period with so much going on now, don't really envy someone with a wild card. I think I won't be able to sleep.
You wouldn't be able to sleep. You were saying you might not be able to sleep and manage Christmas Day just with your impending forfeit. So yeah, the wild card might tip you over the edge.
I was more worried about throwing up. Never mind, but he's thinking about stuff.
Well,
right,
I mean,
anyway, let's leave it there.
A fitting moment to end. Everyone can think about you spewing up Christmas Day.
Merry Christmas.
All right, Merry Christmas, people.
All right, see you in a bit.